This is the clerk with a courtesy notice that the meeting is now available on the meeting portal and YouTube. Good morning, Harry. Would you like to do a quick mic check? You are muted, sir.
Sure, Peggy. Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And Sylvia, would you like to do a quick mic check?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Loud and clear. Thanks.
Thank you.
And good morning, Supervisor Wasserman.
Good morning, Peggy D. How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm good too, thank you. There we go.
Recording in progress.
Hey, Sylvia.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
We are here bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in the county exec's office.
Good, good, good. Warriors came through impressively, didn't they?
I think this was the most gratifying apart from that first 2015 championship for them. It
Yeah.
always is so much richer when you go through the challenges they did.
Oh, yeah. And the Wiggins and Pools, the young guys coming up. That's a bright future, those high picks. Absolutely.
And we'll see how they'll find a way to pay for it all.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure if they raise ticket prices a bit, that they'd still sell out.
And it
If
looks like Supervisor Simidian's here. I
Yeah,
wanted
if you
to bring
bring-
it to your attention.
If you bring the product, that works. Supervisor Simidian is here, so we'll call this meeting to order. Peggy, with a roll call, please.
Good morning, Vice Chairperson Simidian
Here.
and Chairperson Wasserman.
Here also. Thank you very much. We're now moving on to item number 2 of our agenda, which is public comment, which is the opportunity for anyone to speak about anything not on today's agenda. And I guess I would say that comes under the purview of Hewlett. Regardless, we have no speakers. Peggy, do you agree? No speakers?
We do have one raised hand now.
We do. I see it. Thank you. 3 minutes, please.
Our first speaker is Ambrosius. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute to begin speaking. You will have 2 minutes. Oops. One more time, sir. Ambrosius, if you could accept the unmute one more time. There, your mic is open.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for offering the opportunity. My name is Mickey Brocious. I'm representing Monterey Mushrooms at Morgan Hill facility. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the facility. We have a concern about the Coyote Valley overlay and how it may affect the future growth of the company at that
Thank you.
facility.
I think you're talking about, I'm familiar with the facility, and you're talking about item number 6.
I apologize.
No, that's okay. If you wish to speak now, you may, but then you can't speak on item number 6. What is your choice?
I'll wait until item number 6 if that's the case.
Okay, we'll see you shortly.
All right, apologize.
No worries.
And that concludes our speakers.
Thank you. We now move on to consent items. Supervisor Simidian, we have items 7, 8, and 9 on our consent calendar currently. Do you wish to, there you go, your time's up. Do you wish to add, delete, make any comments? Supervisor, you might be muted. Sounds like he is. Peggy, can you tell anything differently than his having?
I have clicked, we do have an ask to, we can't control their mics, but we do have an ask to unmute button, and I have clicked that twice now, and he has not responded.
Okay. He had some technical difficulties previously, and
Yes, he did.
looks like the gremlin may have returned.
There he is.
There he is.
There he is. All right. Supervisor, we're on item 3, consent calendar.
Yes.
7, 8, and 9 are on the agenda. Do you have any comments?
I do not.
Thank you. I'll be happy to make a motion for approval of 7, 8, and 9. Ask for a second.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Roll call vote, please, Peggy.
Vice Chairperson Simidian
Aye.
and Chairperson Wasserman.
Aye as well. And for the record, we have no speakers on those items. We're now going to move on to item number 4, receive report from the Office of Supportive Housing relating to potential housing development at 525 Charleston Road, Palo Alto. Supervisor, I believe this is our monthly. Do you have any comments?
I do not. And I'm happy to say thank you for the report and move approval.
Thank you, and thank you, Consuelo. We've got a motion by Supervisor Simidian. I will second that motion. Do we have any speakers? I do not see any. Peggy, do you agree?
I see no raised hands.
Thank you very much. Roll call vote on item 4, please.
Vice Chairperson Simidian.
Aye.
And Chairperson Wasserman.
Aye. Thank you very much. We now move on to item number 5, receive report from the Department of Planning and Development relating to Senate Bill Senate Bill is SB. So we'll call it Senate Bill 9, public outreach, including impacts on San Antonio Hills, Stanford, Los Gatos neighborhoods, and the exclusion of pipeline provisions from SB 9 applications. I see Sylvia, I see Lisa.
Yes, well, let me turn it over to Ms. McKyle, who's our Planning Services Manager, to make the
Thank you.
presentation on the report.
Good morning, Lisa.
Sure. Thank you, Chairperson Wasserman. We actually have Senior Planner Joanna Wilk here, who can do a brief presentation on the report back to Hewlett.
Okay. Joanna, take it away. And anyone wishing to speak on this item after staff's presentation, please register electronically. Go ahead, Joanna.
Sure. One moment, please. I do believe I was.
My
prepared to
apology.
speak
I think
over-
we have Robert Kane here. Wrong item. Sorry, Joanna. Mr. Robert Kane will do a brief presentation.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Robert. Bet Joanna had a heart attack.
Hi,
Yes.
apologies. We don't have an actual presentation for this item. We just have the report.
That's
But I'm
fine.
happy to recap it if you give me just a moment.
Thank you. We have no members of the public. Supervisor Simidian, comments?
I would appreciate just a brief recap because there are some issues here I'd like to explore a little bit. And so I'd like to hear, I have read the report, of course, and I have some issues here I want to follow up on a little bit. So
Good
I'd
enough.
appreciate the staff report.
We'll
Thanks.
take the brief report and then deal with Supervisor Simidian's issues. Thank you.
That's a tall order, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Sylvia's laughing too. You just can't see it behind the mask. Robert, go ahead.
Okay. So as a brief background, this report was prepared in response to a request from Vice Chair Simidian at the May Hewlett Committee meeting. The request was for the administration to address the ability of Stanford as the owner of parcels leased to owners of single-family residences to subdivide the parcels under SB 9 was part of it. I don't think this is the most recent version. I apologize.
And we have the report in our agendas, Robert. But Supervisor Simidian would like some, whatever facts you want to add on.
Understood, and I apologize.
I can assist here. So there were 4 main items that the Hewlett body requested that we report back on. The first item was related to outreach with the San Antonio Hills as well as the Stanford communities relating to Senate Bill 9. On that item, staff did hold 4 virtual community meetings through April 19th, 20th, 21st, and 28th. Those meetings were sparsely attended from members of the public. However, we did notify members through interested parties lists, frequent applicants that attend that work with the department, neighborhood groups, newspaper postings, etc. The next item that Hewlett requested was to address the ability of Stanford University as the owner of parcels leased to owners of single-family residences to be able to subdivide under Senate Bill 9. Under that item, properties owned by Stanford that meet Senate Bill 9 qualifying parcels are eligible to utilize SB 9. We have not heard from Stanford specifically on their desire to move forward with any future subdivisions or use of SB 9. However, the state law does not allow for a property owner to perform urban lot splits on multiple parcels at a time. They limit how the utilization of SB 9 expands in a community. The next item was to provide clear language and a process for notifying individuals who submit applications after the implementation of the state law after January 1st, 2022. And staff has communicated with every possible occurrence with any property owner who's wishing to work with the county and submit an SB9 application. We've notified them that they will be required to meet whatever the ordinance mandates once approved. We do have a few applications that have been submitted to the county since the inception of SB9. And lastly, to provide to identify parcels in Los Gatos and surrounding areas, including the southern border along the very high fire hazard severity zone. And Robert, are you able to respond to number 4, which was the Los Gatos? Thank you.
Sure, certainly. So the overwhelming majority of the parcels in the unincorporated areas around Los Gatos and along the county's southern border are not eligible to utilize most of the provisions of SB 9. Much of the area is not within the U.S. Census designated urban area or urban cluster, and therefore is restricted under the state law. And most of the properties, many of the properties are not located within what the county has designated as single family residential zones. The hillside zoning is not a single family residential zone, which is many of the parcels in the Santa Cruz Mountains fall under that zoning type. And then for the parcels that do qualify based on zoning and based on being within the urban cluster, Senate Bill 9 requires that parcels that are in the high or very high fire hazard severity zone or that are in state earthquake hazard zones demonstrate that those risks are adequately mitigated before an SB 9 project is approved. For the fire hazard zones, that includes meeting county and, when applicable, state fire safe regulations as far as development on the property and access to the property. Based on our current data, there are 2012 parcels in the area of interest that meet the urban and zoning requirements, and 781 of those parcels are in a fire or geohazard zone and would have to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis before we would allow SB 9 to be used on those parcels.
Thank you, Robert. And that concludes our brief overview. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Lisa and Robert. Supervisor Smithian.
Thank you. I always get anxious when we have a low level of public participation or engagement on what I fear could become a contentious issue later on. And I think there are two struggles that we always confront here. One is it's just sort of human nature in my experience that folks don't really pay attention to land use issues until they're right on top of them and they have an immediate interest or concern to pursue. But also, I just think it's tough given the size of our county and the diversity of the communities to get out. How comfortable is staff feeling that people actually knew these meetings were happening?
Yeah, staff did a pretty robust outreach, including our updating our website and continuously responding to phone calls and inquiries that came in. Like we noted, there were, to the best of our abilities, every avenue was utilized to outreach to the public.
All right, well, I'll just indicate for the record that as Mr. Wasserman certainly knows, I now have 9 different cities and towns in my district as a result of the district reapportionment. I can assure staff that this SB 9 question comes up in every one of those cities and towns, and I spend actually a fair amount of time working with constituents to help them understand that for the folks who live in the incorporated communities, these are issues that get addressed by their local city councils and not the Board of Supervisors. But I am concerned, and I just want to sort of lay down a marker with Planning Department. If there's activity in this area, I hope we go the extra mile in terms of community outreach, because there's a lot of anxiety. There also are some expectations, and when someone shows up with a proposed project, it's going to get very real in a hurry. And so I want to kind of plant that, as I say, so that folks are mindful of that, and sort of the light bulb goes on when there's any indication of interest or a project pending. The second thing I want to say is, I think in terms of the, I don't think there was widespread community understanding of the limitations on lots. And I think it was Mr. Kane who was talking about the fact that, you know, got thousands of potential lots that simply by virtue of fire safety concerns are not eligible. And again, I rather doubt that that is widely understood based on the conversations I'm having throughout my district with the folks I represent. So I think for that particular subset of folks, I want to ask you to be mindful of the fact that you're going to have a community education job to do, and think about whether or not there are ways that it can or should be done proactively. And then this next question, and bear with me, I think I see both Ms. Pianka and Mr. Mitra in the meeting, Mr. Chairman. On the Stanford lands, I was left with as many questions as I had answers, and I'm suspecting, based on the way the staff report was written, that may be the case for the staff as well. When I got my binder some days ago, we did not have a memo from County Council on the subject. Has County Council issued a memo on the subject, either confidential or otherwise, and it just hasn't made its way to me yet?
This is Lisa McKyle. No, I don't believe there's been any particular memo issued, but we do have County Council in attendance.
Mr. Steve Mitra.
Yeah, I don't know how much council does or doesn't want to talk about this topic, but not to be flip about it, but essentially what the staff report tells us is that with respect to Stanford lands, SB 9 applies where SB 9 applies, which is a bit of a circular observation. And you know, the staff report also highlights in a way that I think is very helpful a couple of points that raise for me questions, and I think did for staff as well. If I read staff report correctly, what it says is that a property owner can't use SB 9 for lot splits on multiple adjacent properties. I'm thinking now of the residential properties that are leased by the university to folks who then own homes on top of those properties. So does that mean that since all of these properties, the underlying fee is owned by the university, that they cannot do lot splits? Does it mean they can do every other lot, because then they won't be doing adjacent properties? Is that a subject we should rely on a confidential memo for? Mr. Mitra, Ms. Pianka, who'd like to help with that one? And then I'm going to ask the question about property owners needing to live in their residences 3 years prior to the lot split under state law, if I read the memo correctly, because by definition, the university is the property owner, but doesn't actually live in their residence there, because the residence is owned by a separate party. These have to be issues that are playing out somewhat differently, but similarly, nonetheless, in places where there are underlying long-term leases. Staff, council.
All right, Elizabeth, Lisa.
So let me just quickly put in one quick word here, which is that.
This is Steve.
Yes, this is Steve Mitra, Assistant County Counsel. We are intending to provide you with an off-agenda memo, and your specific questions are also noted, and we will try and address those. But I'm going to ask Elizabeth, Lead Deputy County Counsel Elizabeth Bianco, who is also on the line, to add anything else she wishes at this point.
Thank you, Steve. Elizabeth Bianca, Lead Deputy County Counsel. We are preparing an off-agenda memo. As noted in the staff report, SB 9 applies to Stanford lands, residential lands. The challenge is the mechanics of the applications. The state law certainly didn't contemplate applying SB 9 on lands like Stanford with the specific ownership setup that Stanford has. And that's what will be addressed in the off-agenda memo that will be issued, we hope, this month.
Thank you. That the time you know me well, Ms. Pianka. The timeline was my next question, and so knowing that it's coming soon, and do we know yet whether that will be a attorney-client privileged confidential memo or whether it will be a public document or some combination of the two?
We do not know at this
Okay.
point.
All right, Mr. Chair. Then on that set of issues, I think what I'm going to do is just let it go for now and look forward to hearing from counsel's office. But my exhortation to both county council and to the planning department is I think it's important that we know what the rules of the road are before we are approached, so we're not scrambling in real time if and when we get some kind of application. We have just spent 3 or 4 years on this issue of the San Juan neighborhoods with what I would call mixed results, and I don't think we want to go through that again anytime soon. So it'd be helpful to know what the law does and doesn't provide for on the campus. And I see that Ms. Gallegos has got her hand up, so I'll stop talking, Mr.
We
Chairman.
will go to Sylvia as soon as you're all ready. Sylvia.
Thank you, committee members. Sylvia Gallegos, Deputy County Exec. I did want to clarify one point that may be lost in the report, which is that our communication with the public is an iterative process, and this only reflects efforts to date. We are working on the public communication plan for when we bring the objective design standards forward to the board. And we will, under the, support and guidance of Hewlett, redouble our efforts and would suggest to the department that we more closely work with the respective board offices that know, the districts they represent, so we can give you greater assurance that before we bring the next piece of work to the board for consideration, that you're satisfied that the community engagement process, met the expectations, because we do agree, and we see this throughout the state, that this is this particular bill is creating tensions throughout communities between those that are trying, as you know, to achieve more housing and those that are trying to preserve, a quality of life, including traffic impacts. So we deeply appreciate the concerns raised, and we will work more closely with all of the board offices on those next steps.
Thank you. I just have one little comment, Supervisor Smitty, when you're done.
I believe I'm done, but you never know what your comments might spark in the way of another thought. So go to it, Supervisor.
Thank you. Having a couple of people working in construction that live up in the Santa Cruz Mountains, the concern I have heard is about more development, not less development. And so when you combine the concern about more development, meaning more traffic, meaning what do you do in a fire and blah, 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 I think it's important that the people in Supervisor Simitian's Hillside District in Los Gatos get word that their area is not allowed to be density increased because of what you mentioned as far as the fire zoning. I believe it was Lisa that was giving us that information before, or perhaps it was Robert. But what I took away from much of what you said as a proud resident of Supervisor Simitian's district is that the people in the Santa Cruz Mountains that are in a certain fire district are not subject to higher density. Is that correct, Lisa?
I just want to clarify thank you, Mr. Wasserman, for hillside zoned areas, those are not subject to SB9. They're not able to utilize SB9. Okay. It is not just the mere fact that there is a high fire hazard severity zone or in the state responsibility area.
It's the hillside design.
It's the hillside zoning. That's correct.
Okay.
There are some areas that are not in the hillside zone that are in other zoning districts that might have a high fire hazard severity zone. We'd be looking at those on a case by case basis.
Understood. But bottom line, if they're in the hillside zoning,
Correct.
they are not subject to higher intensification or density.
Correct.
Okay, that's going to go over well for what is often referred to as the mountain people. So thank you for that. Supervisor Simidian, anything else?
Only to say, first, proud to have you, Supervisor. Then second, I think you're right. That information will be well received by a lot of folks, but inevitably there will be a relatively modest, but nonetheless disappointed number who had hopes for development on their property.
Yes.
And again, having clear rules of the road going in, I'm contrasting this with our challenges with the fire safe regulations that came down from the state. And I'm just thinking, again, having it very clear and well communicated before we get into the conversation is going to save everybody a lot of pain and agony, county staff, board of supervisors, and most importantly, our constituents. So please. And then I couldn't help but think, Supervisor Wasserman, as you were talking, to compare and contrast, all of this is going to play out differently on the one hand, on the other hand, just, it's me, in say the San Antonio neighborhood than the Summit. And I just, again, would ask planning to be thinking about, I have to believe this is already in their thinking, but I just think we often confront the fact that in the unincorporated areas, it's a big county with a lot of diversity in terms of what unincorporated looks like, and want to make sure we're mindful of that as well, so that we're not applying the proverbial one size fits all. And that's it, Mr. Chairman. If you want, I can.
No, I won't even ask for a motion.
All right, and I look forward to the memo from council. I'll just underscore that again. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you. All right, with that, we have no members of the public wishing to speak on item 5. Correct, Peggy?
I see no raised hands.
All right, we will now move on to item number 6. Receive report from Planning and Development relating to the development of new greenhouses within the Coyote Valley Climate Resilience Combining District. And as I said before, anybody wishing to speak on this item, please register electronically. In the meantime, Supervisor will look to staff for any comments they have before we hear from the public and then make our own. Is that agreeable? Thank you.
Good morning, Supervisor Wasserman.
Morning, Jacqueline.
This is Jacqueline. I apologize. I was having some difficulty coming on, getting signed on. We have today Senior Planner Joanna Wilk, who will be presenting on this item. Thank you very much. Joanna?
Thank you, Jacqueline, and good morning, members of the Hewlett Committee. Again, I'm Joanna Wilk, Senior Planner, and I will be giving you a brief verbal summary of agenda item number 6 regarding the development of greenhouses in the Coyote Valley Climate Resilience Combining District. So this item is regarding the existing Coyote Valley development regulations, which were adopted by the board in December 14th, 2021. And upon adoption of the regulations, the board directed staff to report to Hewlett regarding different options regarding the development of greenhouses in that Coyote Valley area. The current regulations allow greenhouses to be developed on a maximum of 2 acres on a parcel that has agriculture on site. However, large-scale agriculture operations that do not depend on soil typically utilize the entire parcel. So the 2-acre limit seems to be a little restrictive for that purpose. So to address this topic, staff is presenting the committee with 3 different options as addressed in the report. First is exempting greenhouses from the Coyote Valley development standards altogether. This would require a zoning ordinance amendment and would likely result in increased permanent loss of farmland soils, which would go against the intent of the Coyote Valley regulations. Second is a partial exemption, The greenhouses could exceed 2 acres limitation, the 2 acre limitation, and go to something larger, such as 5 or 10 acres, for example. However, the large scale greenhouse operations are designed to utilize the entire parcel, so increasing the limitation from 2 to something larger could not add any value and could still be seen as a limitation. So the third and final option is to keep the current regulations and prepare public guidance documents to inform greenhouse developers that they can use landscape fabric or other material to cover soil instead of the permanent conversions such as concrete for foundations for those greenhouses. They can also grow their agricultural commodities in ground and then cover them with hoop houses or high tunnel houses. And these types of greenhouse development would not count towards the development area limitation within the Coyote Valley Development Standard Overlay Area. So in conclusion, the department seeks direction from the Hewlett Committee regarding the options discussed. And myself, Director Jacqueline Anciano, and Lead Deputy County Counsel Elizabeth Bianca are available to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joanna. Peggy, let's turn to our speakers. We have one speaker right now.
We currently have 2, and I believe this was the item Ambrosius wished to speak on. If you wish to raise your hand again, sir. For
Yes.
now, our next speaker is Clinton Wu. Mr.
Thank you.
Wu, I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute to begin speaking, and you will have 2 minutes.
Hi, thank you, and good morning, supervisors and staff. I'd read the report as well and appreciate the productive conversations that we've had on trying to find a solution that would continue to allow our 500 employee, 70+ year family business expand to produce wholesale garden plants across our state, counties, and cities. As you know, and as has been stated, the way the ordinance is currently written is restrictive from us expanding at all in the future. And due to the costs associated with greenhouse development, and as it was stated in the report, few, if any other, maybe a handful of greenhouse growers of our product type would actually be able to use the full exemption and continue expanding the business. As Supervisor Simidian stated, the way it's currently written is trying to be a one-size-fit-all approach. But for us as a medium to large size employer and business, it obviously doesn't work as it is. So hopefully we can continue to find a resolution and a compromise to allow us to continue expanding our family business in Santa Clara County. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Alice Kaufman. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute to begin speaking.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, supervisors. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. So yeah, we support the idea of just clarifying, not having any exemptions, but clarifying with guidelines what's currently allowed under the regulations as they stand. It's important to remember that when we're supporting agriculture, we need to support the soil. The soil, that the farmland is what we're talking about when we're talking about supporting agriculture. If you're having greenhouses that have concrete floors, it doesn't require the soil. And farmland, especially prime farmland, is in short supply, and we're losing more and more of it. And we really need to protect it. If you've got a use that can go, that requires a concrete floor, that doesn't have to go on farmland, that can go elsewhere. And we really need to preserve our farmland, because once it's paved over, it is really lost. It's very rare that anybody removes structures and turns something back into farmland. So it's just really important to do that. This is not going to stop any businesses that want to expand to another site. There are plenty of sites in Coyote Valley and nearby that already have construction on them that will be ripe for redevelopment for this kind of use. That's always an option. Again, we should not be giving up good farmland soils for concrete floored greenhouses. That's not a good use of our policy. Thanks.
And Ambrosius, your hand went up and then down. There you go. I'm unmuting you, sir. Please accept the unmute to begin speaking.
Welcome back.
Thank you. And good morning again, everybody. I'm the general manager of the Monterey Mushroom Morgan Hill Farm. We're located at the corner of Miramonte and Hale Avenue. There's approximately 80 acres that's owned by Monterey Mushrooms. There's been a mushroom farm there since the mid-1960s. Monterey Mushrooms has owned that location for over 20 years. It's 100% organic mushroom, fresh mushroom production at this time, employing about 400 people, all represented by the United Farm Workers Union. Monterey Mushrooms provides health insurance and pension plan for all of these employees, currently growing about 420,000 pounds of mushrooms a week, fresh mushrooms a week at this location, about $1.2 million of revenue per week at this location. Our concern is that the Coyote Valley overlay would prevent any future development or expansion of our business at this location. Agriculture is very competitive. We need to be able to continue to expand to remain improve efficiency. Moving to another location is really not an option. We would lose those same efficiencies that we're trying to gain. We're not greenhouses, but we are agriculture. And we feel it's important that we're able to continue to operate and expand as necessary and not lose that opportunity the way that the ordinance is currently written. Thank you for your time.
Excuse me, through the chair, if our current speaker can be permitted to stay on. I'm afraid I just
got a question.
track as a non-greenhouse operation what the impediment would be for continued mushroom production if the recommendation moved forward. And apologies if I just missed that, but if I could get clarity either from the speaker or the staff or both, Mr. Chairman, I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Is your last name Brosius?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Mr. Brosius. Question I have too, the flooring in your operations, is it permeable? Is it concrete? Is it cloth? What is the flooring that you use in your operations?
It is concrete.
Okay. I know Supervisor Simini and I each like mushrooms, but we were not clear on what the flooring was. And you're saying for the same reason as the Kawahara Nursery, that if concrete is not allowed, that would adversely affect your operation. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Supervisor Simini, any other question to ask Mr. Brosius?
No, thank you. You had the same line of inquiry. That's very helpful. And thanks, Mr. Brosius, for clarifying. Thank you.
Thank you. And Peggy, I believe that concludes our public speakers on this item.
Yes, it does.
Thank you. Supervisor Simidian, would you mind, I almost never, ever chair goes last.
Go to it.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And Jacqueline and Joanna and Elizabeth, who's ever most appropriate to respond to questions I raise, please do so freely. So I'm going to tell you some of the things going on in my mind, and please just let me finish, and then please respond to each and every one however appropriate. So an issue for me is property rights. That's one issue that comes into play. Another issue for me is what I would call legacy businesses. Another issue for me is if, as it says in the staff report, unlikely, I'm quoting from package page 37, the second paragraph from the bottom, where it says, it talks about the significant cost of developing uses that require the concrete and all. In the unlikely, staff report says it is unlikely that there will be a proliferation of them converting prime farmland. There's some observations I would like to share with all of you if you haven't been out to these facilities that have spoken. The infrastructure expense with, we're talking about the concrete, and we're talking about the concrete over the ground and protecting the soil. I also know that in these facilities that I've been at with the concrete floors allows various robotic devices to go up and down or overhead. And there's ceilings that open up to allow sunlight and natural air in. There's heating systems to fight off freezing. So the people that have spoken, such as Kawahara Nurseries, Monterey Mushrooms, are not the hoop style greenhouses that many people see going down the freeway, many of which the plastic has been torn and aged by the sun, not repaired, not replaced. So what I'm looking at, I understand number one being too objectionable. I don't see number one getting there as far as 3 votes. Item number 2, partial exemption for new greenhouse development. The 2-acre limitation we have, I am interested in, say, the 5. I don't know how many additional acres the people that have spoken to us today, the legacy farmers. And again, and I know I'm rambling, I'm going back and forth, so please indulge me. The first speaker currently employs 500 people, provides Walmart, Home Depot, Orchard Supply with all the poinsettias and numerous other plants we're all used to. And I know because of their investment in infrastructure, they're able to produce whatever million numbers of flowers for businesses to sell, retail, for them to sell, employ people. They play a role. I know many would argue with me that flowers and other products that they produce are not ag. I don't know anyone who would argue with me that mushrooms are not ag. I kind of see the flowers as being agricultural related, but I don't need to get into that argument. What I'm interested in is finding some way for our legacy businesses to use land they already own and allow them to continue operating their business in a way that has the highest production rate. I know when you have less infrastructure cost, you have less product, less output, less goods. I know when you have higher infrastructure costs, you have more, and when you have more, you can employ more, which results in more for our businesses. So I've got this yin and this yang going through my head. But at the end of the day, I value agriculture. At the end of the day, I think people have property rights, and for property they've owned for decades, have the right. They bought it zoned agriculture. I don't like changing things in the middle. And I'm looking for a compromise to help our legacy businesses use the land they bought decades ago. That's where I stand. I don't know if there'll be 3 votes ultimately at the board or not. And I see Supervisor Simidian's hand raised. So I'm going to stop now and turn to him. Sir.
Thank you. And I only wanted to offer a couple of thoughts, Mr. Chairman, because if staff does want to respond, I thought it would be easier and a little bit helpful for them to hear from both of us prior to offering additional comments.
Thank you. May I just finish one thought I've got?
Please.
Thank you. And then you and staff, just as you said, I just left it out on my scribbled page of notes here, making sure I covered all my notes, which I'm sure never happens to any of you. The other part was this talking about the permeable fabric, and that's on the ground. Then there's the engineered coverings, which is up above. And I don't know if perhaps there's some compromise that can be reached where we say permeable fabric on the ground, but engineered coverings above are important because they're important for spraying, they're important for watering, they're important for heating, they're important from protecting the crops underneath from some El Nino or something that might come flying through and destroy the coverings that are not well engineered. And by engineered, I mean with steel and glass. So I'll leave it there for now. Supervisor Simidian.
Thank you. I think it was Ms. Kaufman who made the point about loss of prime soils, and I wanted to sort of make sure that we underlined, highlighted that whatever I think the concern is a legitimate one. I think it's a significant one. I think it's real. That being said, I don't. A question for staff when they take an opportunity to respond here in a minute is all of the property we're talking about prime soils? I mean, there's soil and there's soil, and if it's all prime soil, then I guess my question's moot. But if we're talking about different classes of soil, is there a distinction or a differentiation and different application of rules based on soils types that might be appropriate and helpful in the conversation? The second question that I had is similar, although I have slightly different language. Supervisor Wasserman is talking about, I think, using the term legacy properties. I would just ask, is there any potential here for what I'll call grandfathering? And I mean that, of course, in a gender neutral way, but grandfathering properties that are already in place. And if the concern is to sort of look to the future and protect against expansion, grandfathering might be a way to thread the needle on something like that. So I would appreciate some additional thinking and conversation among the interested parties to see if that helps us thread the needle. And the third piece is there a lawful and appropriate potential to, in effect, say this could be permitted to happen, maybe with soils, distinctions, maybe with grandfathering, maybe not. But with some limitation on the total number. And I again want to go back to the comment about, I've been at this long enough to know prime soil is precious, and I don't want my thinking out loud to be misconstrued as anything other than what it is. I'm clear about the importance of soils, but by the same token, if we're trying to find a way to thread the needle, is there a percentage limit that could be agreed to by the parties, various stakeholders, 1%, 2%, 5%, whatever it is, so that, because I really don't think this is a phenomenon that's going to run amok unless we let it. And so I think nobody wants to let that happen. On the other hand, as I say, we're trying to figure out how to manage a competing set of interests here. And Supervisor Wasserman, I will spare you and the committee and the staff and the public my lengthy ruminations on what's happened to the floriculture industry in Northern California over the last 25 years as a result of a lot of product moving offshore and the implications that's had for our economy and our workforce, to your point. So the 1, 2, 3 of that was prime versus non-prime, any potential for grandfathering, and any potential for some kind of a percentage cap or acreage cap that might allow us to thread the needle. Those are my three points.
Thank you. Staff.
Sure, this is Senior Planner Joanna Wilk. I will do my best to answer the 3 items that are presented to us, and then I'll leave it to Jacqueline or County Council to supplement if they have anything to add. First, I'll address the question regarding the prime soils versus non-prime soils, development of greenhouses on one or the other. It's my understanding that the Coyote Valley overlay consists of predominantly prime farmland soils. So adding the allowance of development of these greenhouses on non-prime would still be somewhat restrictive to these types of agricultural operations, because that the non-prime is so limited itself in this overlay. So it does not seem to be something that would satisfy or meet the needs of these large-scale greenhouse operations. Secondly, the grandfathering item. I believe as our ordinance is currently written, when we have a legal non-conforming structure or use, it is permitted to operate as is. And if there is any expansion, then it forgoes its legal non-conformity. So that grandfathering, if you will, is no longer something they have permitted. It would have to be something we would need to take a closer look at, since our current ordinance does not, it sounds as though from this discussion, our current ordinance would not allow further development of these legacy nurseries on their own property if they are currently non-conforming with the Coyote Valley regulations. We'd have to take a closer look at that. And then let's see, thirdly, the percentage. So my understanding, Vice Chair submitting, is you wanted to take a closer look at, in the entire overlay area, could we see if there's a certain percentage of farmland, prime farmland soils, that we would allow to be converted with the wholesale, the greenhouse development. Is that a correct understanding of what you wanted to look into?
Close, not quite. I wouldn't want to tie it to prime in that case, because I think it sends the wrong message. I think if you simply said, all right, the overlay applies to X number of acres, and you know, I don't know if we're talking about, given the level of demand or interest, if we're talking about 10%, 5%, 1%, you know, at the risk of being wildly beyond. I mean, obviously, if somebody said, well, we'd like to be able to use 99% of the overlay in this way, we'd all say, I don't think that's going to happen, nor should it. So I don't pretend to know what that number might or might not be, but I would tie it to just some, very modest amount of the very modest percentage of the overlay, so that we weren't at risk of, and then that negates the need to be caught up in debate about what kind of soils we're talking about. And going back to your first point, if I may, through the chair, I think it's helpful to know that most of the soils in this area is quality soil, which was my understanding, but it sounds like that's a pretty predominant situation. But you never know. There might be some small area that is not prime, where the concern is reduced. But on point number 3, thank you. I think that's a useful distinction. And as I say, some modest amount might allow folks to move forward, as long as we had a cap that folks could live with. And if the cap got reached in, a matter of months or a couple of years, so be it. Then people know, to Supervisor Wasserman's point, they know going forward, not going to happen. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry for the lengthy intercession there.
No, I'm doing lengthy myself. I appreciate that. Jacqueline, before I turn to you, thank you, Joanna, for the comments you just made. I'm thinking on the grandfathering issue, just to be clear, the general standard operating procedure for planning department, things grandfathered in that are pre-existing. They might become legal non-conforming, but they're grandfathered in pre-existing. And what I heard you say was that using that grandfathering, I'll call it exemption, allowing existing to continue. We're not going to come in and shut down a place that has concrete floors. So a place that has concrete floors already in this particular area will most likely be allowed to continue. Is that correct?
If the operation is a nursery, let's say, for example, concrete floor, and they've got their set concrete area, they can continue that.
Okay, so if you're continuing business, we're not going to close that business down because they have concrete floors. So that's number one. Number two, it's our practice, if it's non-existing, if they own the land but haven't done anything with it prior to our new law going into place, they will not be allowed to do so. That's correct?
So you're saying that if the parcel is vacant and they
Yes,
wanted to develop greenhouses and operate their agricultural operation with concrete floors,
yes,
and we already have our Coyote Valley development standards in place,
yes.
they would have to abide by those Coyote Valley development standards.
Gotcha. Okay. The percentage allowed topic that Supervisor Simidian raised, it was kind of reminding me of the FAR, the floor area ratio. It was kind of reminding me of prior conversations Supervisor Simidian and I were involved with a couple of years ago, where we envisioned a piece of land and said, okay, the house, the barn, the driveway, not to exceed X number of unpermeable surface. And we got into issues, Supervisor Simidian, with, well, if that leaves somebody with 1/4 of an acre, that's tough to farm, even turning a tractor. So what I was looking at when you were talking about percentage allowed that Supervisor Simidian raised, I thought was an interesting topic. And I look forward to hearing more about that, because if somebody has, for instance, 1,000 acres, one option might be that we say they're allowed to develop, to cover, make unpermeable 5%. It could be a small number like that. And that's a possibility. What I really liked from Supervisor Simidian was the concept of threading the needle. What I'm hoping to do is thread the needle for existing property owners in a way that a majority of the board finds reasonable to proceed while protecting prime land. The last question that I had, Joanne, that I had asked that you weren't able to answer yet when you responded a minute ago, had to do with our rules dealing with engineered coverings, and I'll call it hardscapes on the ground. So for me, there's two different, those are, one's above you and one's below you, okay? So there's two different things going on. The engineered coverings, I understand it has great value, and I don't know that that is damaging to the soil. Somebody might argue the amount of sunlight or rain or water that it gets, and I think the amount of light can all be addressed. I think if something opens up can be addressed. I see the covering, Joanna, as one issue, engineered coverings. Perhaps there's some compromise that can be reached getting us through that needle where we have engineered coverings and yet permeable ground. I know in the building that I'm doing, there is now permeable hardscapes, if you will. Where I lived 6 months ago, we put in artificial turf that is rock hard to walk on and is compacted by the artificial turf company. They put that in, you could walk on it, but I bought the most permeable turf that existed. It's like AstroTurf, and all the water that came down runs right into the ground. Nothing ran off it. But again, if you're totally sealed above, you don't get any water. So I understand that. So I'm looking at not just saying no, but perhaps there's something between concrete, and there are now permeable concretes, but something between concrete and artificial turf that allows the machines that go down and water and spray what's being grown under the house to roll efficiently. Supervisor Simidian.
Thank you. I wanted to ask through the chair, if I may, staff to think a little bit about grandfathering in what I would call a somewhat different way that is, I think, particularly applicable to this conversation. Ms. Wilk was talking, as I understood her, about legal non-conforming uses, which is mostly about the existing structure as opposed to the existing underlying land. And so my point is that, and I'm not proposing this because I don't know if it's a good idea, honestly, but that on a limited basis, we could grandfather in parcels, properties, as distinct, Ms. Wilk and planning staff, from the typical, legal non-conforming use protections that are structure specific as opposed to dirt specific, for lack of a better term. And then I just wanted to clarify, Mr. Wasserman, and just to make sure there's no confusion, when I was talking about percentages, I was talking not about percentages of any particular parcel or property or user, but of the entire overlay, meaning we've taken action with this overlay precisely to the earlier speaker's point, because of concern about protecting the area covered by the overlay. So my question is, if there is some small percentage of that overlay which could be used in this way, but capped at that small percentage, then that might be, to reuse the phrase that you've now picked up, that might be a way to thread the needle on this one, which is to say, if we can avoid hardship, create some additional opportunity, generate agricultural output that benefits our county, and still protect the area with the overlay on 99% or 98%, but give people, including us at the board level, the assurance that this wasn't going to run amok. That, I don't know if that's a path that works or not, but I'd like to ask staff to explore it. And I guess, Mr. Chairman, to try and help land this thing, this was going to go to our full board. And I guess the question I would ask you, Mr. Chair, and staff, is going to come back through our committee after asking, because I'm prepared to offer a motion to direct staff to have additional conversations with stakeholders and come back to our committee. And if they're in the same place, they're in the same place. But if they've got some new options, I think it's worth giving it a try.
Thank you. And I appreciate the clarification on the percent of the entire ag overlay, small percent, be allowed to be used in this manner. So I will second that motion. And staff in general, just so you understand, I know you've heard everything that we said. I know Jacqueline is a great writer down. She probably knows shorthand of what's being said. And I too would like this to come back to Hewlett at the earliest convenience so we can keep moving this thing along to do. And please do not limit yourselves to just what two supervisors have mentioned today. If you know of anything else that might be helpful to navigate us to where you likely hear Supervisor Simitian and I to be, and I'm not saying we're the exact same by any means, but I think we're both looking to thread that proverbial needle and find out if there's a way that we can get this thing done. Supervisor Simitian, your hand's still raised. Additional comments? Nope, that's down. Thank you, staff. Jacqueline, anybody, any additional comments you wish to make?
No, thank you. Jacqueline and Shano, no, thank you. We will take your recommendations and have conversations and look at ways of threading the needle and return back to.
Wonderful. I appreciate that. So you heard about the percentage of the entire, we heard about grandfathering. I was interested in dividing up the overhead with the flooring as two separate issues. And I think Supervisor Simitian, they addressed your first question about prime versus non-prime.
Yes, but even though it has the potential to be a very small piece, I do think I'd like staff to explore whether
Oh, yeah.
a distinction can be made and incorporated in whatever action we take, in part so we're intellectually consistent. If the goal is to protect soil, let's protect soil, except where it's not soil that really requires or deserves protection, and if there is any. And even if it's a small amount, I think that makes us intellectually consistent. I also think you never know. Randomly, somebody might come along who wants to make use of that provision, even if it only, is 50 square feet, somewhere off in the remotest of regions. Thank you.
Thank you. So that I think talks about identifying where the non-prime soil is and perhaps distinguishing between what rules apply to this area of prime and what areas apply to a much smaller area of non-prime. All right, we'd take a roll call vote, please. Peggy.
Vice Chairperson Simidian.
Aye.
And Chairperson Wasserman.
Aye. And thank you all for allowing for my rambling today. Appreciate that. We're going to adjourn this meeting to Thursday, August 18th at 10 a.m. All righty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, staff. Thank you, public.
Thank you, everybody. Stay well. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.